Everything you're about to hear is for education and entertainment purposes only. Whilst we are licensed, we're not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Any advice is general advice. Equity Mates operates under Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.
Equity Mates!
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Equity.
Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates, a podcast where we explore what is possible in the world of investing. If you've just joined us for the very first time, a massive welcome to our community. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. You often tell me that you are the top 1%.
That's not true.
Top 1% financially,
No.
top 1% in looks.
No, that's true.
But look, you often don't get recognised as the top 1% until today, because today we have a very special episode. This is not a normal episode of Equity Mates. We are actually the guests on another podcast, the Top 1% podcast. It's from our friend Sam Gordon, who most people probably know from his work at Australian Property Scout, but this is unrelated to property. He speaks to high achievers, high performers, and two idiots who host a podcast to unpack, I guess, their stories. And we thought it would be worth sharing with you guys because it was an interesting look at our stories.
Yeah.
Questions we hadn't got before. A lot of questions about Bryce's childhood.
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Yeah. It was a bit of a therapy session.
Yeah.
No, this one, we're dropping this because we just thought, you're right, this is content that we would never do ourselves on the show.
Yeah.
As much as we would, often do talk about the story of Equity Mates. Some of the stuff that we covered in here, we would never otherwise cover, and we just thought it's a good insight that that you guys, the community, would enjoy listening to. So, really covered story of Equity Mates, story of our personal investing and finance journeys. It was good. Really enjoyed it.
Literally how you were raised.
How I was raised. yeah.
How you were taught about money.
How I was taught about money. Yeah.
Which I think, your story for people who are having kids or thinking about having kids, like the way that you were brought up to approach money, I think is a good example for other people to follow.
Yeah.
Like really instilling that spending, saving, investing mentality early.
Yeah.
Your dad was doing it before Barefoot Investor had published his book.
Yeah,
so
that is Barefoot Investor. Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you enjoy it, you can check out more of the Top 1% podcast. Just search it wherever you're listening to this, and you can subscribe and listen to all the episodes that Sam has produced. If you want more of Sam's property content, you can also listen to the Scouting Australia podcast that he hosts. But Bryce, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Bryce and Ren, the boys from Equity Mates. In 2022, you guys won the Best Business Podcast from Australian Podcast Awards. You've also got your 2 books, Best Personal Finance book as well. What was your moment in podcasting history where you realised you were onto something?
We knew we were onto something because the business has evolved beyond just the podcasting.
Yeah.
And so we actually, across all channels, now reach about 600,000 individuals a month.
600,000 people reached in a month is crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because content is king.
Yeah, 100%. It's all brand, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tequila company. Maybe it's Equity Mates Tequila.
Well, we have
I would come in on that. I love tequila.
We have spoken about Equity Grapes.
Okay.
Wine brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll leave you boys to that one, but if you ever come to tequila, I'll jump on.
Quit our jobs,
Yep.
2020.
At that time, we weren't making enough to pay ourselves fully, so we raised a convertible note from someone who was like, "You guys have to quit. There's something here."
Yeah.
And I think it was $100,000.
We raised $100,000, which for us was
and that
like,
got us started.
yeah. 6 months into that, though, I just said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to be sweet." Yeah. Because not too long after that, we ended up raising 1.2 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because we managed to convince people that podcasting was a business and that our audience was pretty powerful.
Yeah. Raising 1.2 mil. What do you do with that cap in a space like this?
It was really around.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor?
Best piece of advice.
Best piece of advice.
I think
What do you believe is the number one character trait of the top 1%?
I think it's almost like a.
Bryce and Ren, the boys from Equity Mates. Boys, welcome to the Top 1% podcast.
Thanks for having us, Sam.
Sam, glad to be here.
Boys, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, you boys have interviewed me, it must be about 10 or 15 times now over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I've absolutely loved, obviously being able to jump on your podcast and share all the insights on Equity Mates as well. But I'm pumped to have you boys on the top 1% and dive through your journeys from where you started from, and then obviously to the juggernaut that Equity Mates and all the affiliated podcasts and books have been as well. So yeah, super excited to unpack this, boys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
a
be
bit of a
good.
therapy session.
Here we go. I got the box of tissues. We're ready to go.
Feels weird. I put the laptop away. I don't have questions in front of me.
Yeah, Bryce has still got his
What are we
clothes.
doing here? Yeah.
I love it, boys. Well, we're gonna get up the shovel and maybe the excavator, mate. We're unpacking some stuff here.
Nice.
But boys, to run through a bit of a rap sheet, I always like to start with the rap sheet to kind of paint the picture, potentially for any listeners that don't know who you boys are, or haven't heard me on Equity Mates as well. Maybe it's the first time I've ever listened to the pod. Guys, so run through your rap sheets. You've got it's a 9 podcasts in total that you guys have under the Equity Mates brand.
About that.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
right.
Ebbs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
flows, but
Yeah.
around there. Yeah.
But you've obviously got the 2 juggernauts. You've got Equity Mates, which consistently sits in the top 5 business podcasts in Australia. Quite often I see you there at number 2, number 3. And let's be honest, if Diary of a CEO
I
wasn't
know.
there,
Hard to knock
Stephen
him off.
Bartlett.
it's annoying. Come on, bro. Go back to the UK,
don't count
man.
him.
Let
We
the
don't
Australians
count
win.
him.
I'm the same, man. So like, if we take him out of the equation, you boys very regularly like 1, 2, 3 in Australia for obviously Equity Mates, and Get Started Investing is obviously right up there as well. You guys are always in the top 10 with that one, and sometimes it creeps up into the top 5 as well. So 2 juggernauts that are just consistently there. And being half decent at a podcast myself with Scouting Australia and pushing that as hard as I can, all the rest of it, I know what it takes to occasionally creep into the top 10. So for you boys to sit there every single day, literally every day, I check where I am. I'm like, oh, I've got to scroll past the boys again.
You gotta stop checking every day.
But it's cool, man. Like, it's really cool because you boys are always so humble as well when I meet you. When in reality, you've got 2 of the best business podcasts in Australia. So I'm super keen to unpack how you got there as well. You obviously got all the other poddies you run alongside it now. In 2022 as well, you guys won the best, the trophy sitting over there behind you, Ren, mate, the best business podcast in 2022 from Australian Podcast Awards. So that one, how did that feel taking that out? That's a whopper.
Big surprise.
Oh, well, no, we weren't that surprised.
Well,
I'm
I mean-
pretty happy with the shot.
Oh, no. Sorry. It wasn't a surprise we won.
I still
but,
doesn't
like,
think we should have won it.
Stephen Bartlett's like, I should have won that award.
well, I remember we were all pretty elated at the time.
Yeah,
it was a great recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're up against some pretty strong competition.
Who were you
So-
up against at the time? Who were the big boys?
So there's the couple of other investing podcasts in our space. Victoria Devines, She's on
Okay.
the Money.
Yep.
Mark Boris.
Oh yeah, Mark Boris.
Yeah.
And then the
That's normally the top 3. We
Yeah.
take Bartlett out of it, so you 3 are always
Yeah,
at the top.
yeah. And then there's always like an ABC or an SBS podcast
Okay.
that pops up in like every category.
Okay.
They don't have the commercial constraints that the rest of us do. So yeah, I can't remember who else. They were the main ones probably.
Yeah. I guess the big hitters who you would expect to be up there.
Of course,
But,
who's always up there in that top spot with you
Yeah,
guys as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But I'll tell you what, boys, it's pretty big company. Obviously, like Victoria Devine's done well over her period too. But Boris, man, like exited for $500 million back in bloody 2004, and just like if we talk about people that have resources, that man has resources. So consistently be in up and around and above that, boys, that's nothing to sneeze at. Now you've also got your 2 books. 2021 Get Started Investing came out. 2022 from memory, or 23, 22.
20 for
Don't Stress, Just Invest. Yep.
23.
Yeah.
23. Okay, so that one came out, and then you boys obviously that was the award winner, best personal finance book as well from the Australian
Business Book Awards.
Book Awards.
Yeah,
That's the one.
yeah.
That's the
So
one.
that was 2024. We won that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want us to keep doing our rap sheet, it was also
Let's go, boys. Let's go. 100%.
What
it's
else have
also
we
been
done?
turned into Spanish.
Yeah,
we sold the Spanish rights to it, and it's
Really?
been reprinted in a hard copy Spanish.
No way.
And is now being sold. So if any listeners want to read it in Spanish,
No way, really. I didn't know that.
What's it
That's
called?
hectic.
Oh, we don't have a copy of it, but that was pretty exciting.
That's
as well.
Yeah.
boys. Get a copy, throw on the shelf.
I
That's
know.
mad.
We might have one downstairs. We'll show you
That's
on the way
hectic.
out.
Yeah, that's mad. That's unreal. No, well
Yeah.
done, boys. Well
Yeah,
done.
no, it's good.
And
Yeah.
audio books and
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
well,
awesome.
I mean, I think we were saying this before we started recording. Like, Bryce and I quit our jobs, and we said we're just going to try and throw everything against the wall.
Yeah.
So, books, podcasts. We might go through the list of all the podcasts at some point. Like, we've tried a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it hasn't worked, but it's nice that the rap sheet only looks at the stuff that has worked. So.
Well, it's funny, but man, because like at the end of the day, dude, like all that stuff, all those, we won't say the failures, but the things that didn't take off the way that, we all hope that they do, it builds the ideas into the things that do, or it reiterates the stuff that we're doing well and double down on that and focus on that to turn into something bigger and better, which, as you can see, your two big boppers are absolutely killing it. And sometimes it takes those iterations. Like I've learned that obviously from the property space, and even within our podcasting as well, what works, what doesn't work. And obviously you boys are on a different level with it, but it's almost like the way I always look at it is a loss is only a loss if you don't take a lesson from it. As long as you take the lesson, sometimes it can be an expensive lesson, or a lesson that hurts. But at the end of the day, man, as long as you take that lesson from it, it isn't a loss. It's just
in our world, a loss is a loss only if you sell.
There you go. Really?
Yeah.
Well, Sam invests in Australian property. He doesn't know what a loss is.
Now I just move it into 4 more when I sell something. Literally. No, that's beautiful, boys. That's beautiful. Well, anyway, the one final thing as well is I know you boys hosted that monster event, which was 2 years ago.
FinFest 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that was over 2,000 attendees, right?
Yeah, 2,000 for a finance festival.
Yeah.
I think something
on a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Yeah.
So I think something Australia had genuinely never seen before.
Yep.
Something that we really wanted to stamp our mark as the brand that could engage young Australians in finance in a way that no one else could.
Yep.
And I think we managed to achieve that.
Yeah. I think if you look at like every other finance event in Australia, it's like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's full of like self-managed super fund retirees and then people who are in the industry.
Yeah.
And like for Bryce and I, we were working, 9 to 5 jobs, Monday to Friday. We couldn't get to those events.
Yeah.
And so we were like, how do we do that? And there's this idea that like retail investors aren't interested in it because they're not showing up. But we were like, no, it's the structure of the event that's holding people back.
Yeah. So who's running it, the times, all that sort of
Exactly,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we did it on a
vibe.
Saturday, and we brought ticket prices down because the ones that are on the weekend, they'll be like $400, $500 a ticket.
Wow.
They'll hold it in like the Hyatt ballroom or something, and it's just it's not accessible.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we're going to prove the industry that young people do want to learn this stuff. They want to be engaged.
Yep.
And I think we did.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Well, I mean, it was a success. I know you boys were knackered after it. We've spoken about it before. Would you ever do it again?
Look, we both. Well, I can't speak for Ren. I loved it.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think we'd love the opportunity to do it again, but financially and emotionally, it's a huge commitment.
Yes.
So I think we just need to do it at a time that's right.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe some backers and then someone to run it as well. You boys just
We'll
piece some things together.
We'll license it. Yeah.
I think for any budding event planners out there, what we've learned the hard way was there's no economies of scale in events. There's actually diseconomies of scale a lot of time. Like as you get bigger, everything gets more complex and like the cost per head goes up. And so, we loved the fact that we could get thousands of people through the door.
Yeah.
But it's just a big lift.
Yeah.
Bryce also got married the week before.
No way.
So he had 2 big events to plan for.
Bro, should just put them together. Just made it one big event.
In my mind, it was, and my wife was not happy.
Imagine that as the headliner, 9 p.m. Bryce gets married.
No, I don't know. So I don't think too many people would top that number of attendees at their wedding, man. I think you carry that for a while.
True, yeah.
You would carry that for a while, mate.
Imagine the number of presents you would have got.
Oh my god, yeah, the registry would have been wild.
Man, in all honesty, mate, I can really relate to that because we obviously held our first summit last year, and then we had the big one of the summit and the boot camp. We had 700 people to the summit, 450 or 500 to the boot camp, 700 to the summit, and it was pretty much just me and my EA that planned it out, and man, we were wrecked at the end of it, absolutely spent, and for us on that end. And that was at 700 people and it's exactly as you say, like people think you're making heaps of money out of it. And literally the second time we did it, we had to increase the price because we'd lost money on the first one. And I didn't care because I wanted to do it as an educational event specifically for, APS clients and Scouting Australia members and listeners and all the rest of it, just so they could get enough and take away from it. But it's funny, man, you get to the end of it and you're just like, oh, I'm never doing that again. And then about a month later, you're like, we'll play. Let's start playing to the next one. So
Chase the high.
It is a kick, It's a serious kick. I'd love to get involved. If you boys ever do it again, it would be sick. It's something different about getting up on stage and kind of when you love what you do and you can put it out there to so many people, it's a different level.
And like in person rather than online is so different because like you feel the energy and like you meet people, whereas like, you know, we're three blokes sitting in a dark room and, you know, there's lots of people listening, but you don't get that same interaction.
It's a different connection, eh? 100%, man. 100%.
Yeah.
No, that's sick. I wish I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and actually watch how that played out.
Yeah,
there we go.
Next one. Yeah,
there we go. 100%. That sounds good, boys. All right, sweet. And I guess something I wanted to kick off before, I always love to rewind these right back to the start to understand where you boys came from. Obviously, I know a bit about your boys' background, but I'd love to peel that back a bit further. But there was a question I had for you. You boys obviously have ridiculous numbers of downloads per month. Are you comfortable sharing what you do downloads per month?
Yeah. We do about 500,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, the grand's like,
In the grand scheme of things, what do you guys
I mean,
say?
if you look at top podcasts in Australia, like they're in the millions.
Yeah.
So like, but I think if you recognize the subject matter, then we're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, we don't think about it as ridiculous. We think we should be bigger.
It should be bigger. Yeah.
But yeah, like
it's pretty ridiculous.
It's more than it was.
It's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous, mate. I think it's obviously coming from my end of podcasting as well. Like that number is huge, man. And I think it's funny though because it's all relative to time as well, right? And I think like that's what I want to dive in with you boys for a bit now. Because how long have you been running Equity Mates for?
8 years.
Yeah.
Start of 2017 was when we launched our first episode.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I think if you look at that number, the number we actually prefer to look at is how many people we're actually reaching rather than how many downloads we're doing. Because for us now, and we'll probably get into it, but the business has evolved beyond just the podcasting. And so we actually across all channels now reach about 600,000 individuals a month. Okay. So whilst there's the downloads, we actually it's now it's a media business.
Yeah.
And so reaching individuals wherever they are is more important.
How's that transition been from just podcasting to now? I know we're going to dive further into it, but I'm just curious, like right now.
Podcasting's easy. Podcast is a couple of mics and you're good to go. But then you transition to video and it's, cameras and lenses and how do you look and the backgrounds and the set dressing and all of that stuff. The editing of it is, 2 or 3 times more complex. So like it's a big jump and it's a big step up for the team and, you have to staff up for it. But that's where the world is going.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the biggest things we've learned like building a media business is you have to move quickly, you have to keep experimenting and you have to move with your audience and the platforms.
Yeah.
And like the shift to video is happening. And I reckon every podcast you listen to now has video because that's where the world's going.
Yeah.
It also hasn't been overnight though. Like I think the first 2 years of the business, we didn't even do social media.
Yeah, right.
We just, Ren actually hated social media.
I hated it. And now it's my job.
So you look at what we've got now.
Yeah.
So, large audience on socials, large audience on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like from day one, we were like, bang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And sometimes the platforms don't take off. Like I went hard on Threads early because I was like, okay, this could be something and you got to move.
The next TikTok?
Threads didn't take off.
Nah. Nah, it's interesting, eh? How do you stay in front of that? Like with everything that you can see moving and changing as well, like you were saying before, how do you keep on top of that and in front of that? Because obviously you want to try and stay as in front of trends as you can be, but obviously you need to see the shift first. But how do you stay in front of that knowing what your audience wants to see?
Oh, I mean, like, there's no magic bullet. You just have to do the work.
Okay.
And like doing the work is just like mindlessly scrolling a lot of the time.
Really?
So it's not hard work, but it's like you sort of see trends emerging and you see what your competitors are doing and you think about your own habits and you speak to other people and you speak to other people who are, in the podcasting space or the content creation space and you just sort of, keep your finger on the pulse of the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to be honest, like we both worked real jobs before this in retail, and it's the same. Like
real jobs.
Yeah, real jobs. Yeah. You speak to your customers and you watch your competitors and you see what your colleagues are doing. You think about your own habits.
Yeah.
Like whatever industry, it's the same.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. Something I wanted to ask you as well before we kicked off was the size of the reach, right? 600,000, people reached per month. How often do you boys get recognized?
Yeah, it's interesting. How often we get recognized is a reflection of how well we're going from a growth point of view.
Okay.
So I reckon at the moment it's quite regularly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I went to Perth, got recognized in Perth. Airports is a big one.
100%.
Yeah, I
100%.
recognise a lot in airports.
Do you get the sneaky little like photo after because they don't want to come up to you? Or is it?
No,
I've had a few of those, man. It's like, it's weird.
We're not Sam Gordon.
Stop creeping me, bro. Stop creeping me.
We have had one where I have been walking down the street filming a video.
Yeah.
And someone's caught me doing that, filmed that, and sent it through.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny.
That's funny.
But yeah, we get recognized like consistently, I'd say, not like a lot.
No.
Yeah.
But enough. But we always kind of struggle with like
I get so awkward.
what to say,
Yeah.
especially if you're at the pub and you're not kind of in the zone to be like
Have a DM
having the
about
chat.
fucking
Yeah.
stocks and stuff.
There was
So-
one time I was at the gym and someone came up to me and they were like a couple and they listened and I got so awkward that I just left 5 minutes later.
No way. You left gym.
Yeah, I'm going.
It's funny, man. It's funny you mention that because for me, it's airports and gym. It's where I always seem
okay.
to be honest, I'm a
Yeah,
bit of a hermit. I don't go that much anyway. So
Yeah.
it always seems to be airports and gym are the two that I get hit up at as well. So
Yeah.
it's funny, man. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It's nice.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it kind of makes it real.
Yeah.
Because you get to get an understanding of who's listening.
Yeah.
And they're always it's always so different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
100%.
nice.
I could imagine I reckon you guys get recognized so often, but people would just be like, "Oh, look, it's Bryce."
Definitely.
Yeah.
I reckon it would happen all the time.
Yeah.
It's just it's so disconnected to like your day-to-day reality because like what I was saying earlier, we're sitting in a dark room and talking and
Yeah.
Bryce and I just stare in each other's eyes and talk about stocks all day. And then you
Sounds
put it
romantic.
out. You put it out in the world. So you gotta love what you do.
Oh, come on, bro. What are you doing?
But you put it out in the world and like the numbers show up on a screen, but like there's no people attached to that.
Yeah.
So then when people do recognize you, you don't really realize that like real people listen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's nice, but it's always a bit disconcerting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's funny, man. It's funny to think about it like that. How much of the world has gone remote now.
Yeah.
You know, so much of it used to be the handshakes, the meetings, everything in person. Whereas these days, so many businesses remote, so many service-based businesses, especially remote, so much stuff like this, like podcasting and YouTubing and Instagram. You boys, massive following, obviously, on all of the above. So it's interesting, that almost slight disconnect, like you said,
Yeah.
where you almost get like that little bit awkward when someone comes up to you because you don't know them, but
Yeah.
mate, they probably listen to you 5 times a week.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You would be in their
Yeah,
ears
yeah.
5 times a week, so
Yeah.
they would feel like, oh, look, it's Ren. I know Ren.
A lot of people think we're backwards as well. Like they listen to us and they see photos of us and
Yeah.
they think Bryce's voice is mine and my voice is Bryce's.
There you go.
So I don't know who that's a compliment.
Yeah, I was
to.
thinking the same thing. I was like, who's that compliment for? I guess it depends what sort of voice they like, right?
Yeah.
Bryce got that very deep, like,
I know,
it's
yeah.
like the midnight mix or whatever. You know, the guy, the old guy that used to be on the Sydney radio. He's like, love song. What is it? Love song
Yeah,
compilation.
We had to adjust our audio editing because Bryce's voice was blowing out people's bass in their cars.
No way. Built for it, mate. Built for late night love songs.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, boys, let's dive into it. I'm super keen to understand your backstories and learn, where you boys are from, what made you get into all this sort of stuff, and even the drive of where you guys have pushed to now. But where are you boys from? What's the backstory?
So I guess for me, home is Wagga Wagga.
Okay.
Yeah. We moved to Wagga when I was just starting kindergarten.
Okay.
And I lived and grew up in Wagga all the way through until leaving high school did a gap year. So 2009.
Okay.
So I would say I'm a country boy.
Yeah?
Yeah. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you still head out to Wagga?
A couple, 2 or 3 times a year max.
Okay. Yeah.
It's expensive to fly and it's a big ask for a weekend drive.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the world, but man.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You've probably bought a few properties there.
Mate, regional New South Wales is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. Moving on, Ren. So where are you from, buddy?
So I grew up in Sydney.
Okay.
And
Whereabouts in Sid?
on the North Shore.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. And grew up there. That's the story.
Yeah, sweet.
And then Bryce and I both moved to Canberra for uni.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we met at college down in Canberra.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, like kind of upbringing wise, like what was it? Because I always find people who kind of have that drive, regardless of whether they're a bit more techie or whatever, or they're gun salespeople or athletes or whatever they are, they all seem to have like something that puts a bit of drive. Whether it's chip on the shoulder or just fire in the belly or whatever it is. Like, do you reckon is there anything looking back in your lives, especially when you were younger, that put that fire in the belly?
I reflect on this a lot to try and, because, you know, we're both at the stage of, you know, kids, you know, around the corner-ish,
Yep.
and just thinking about the, you know, parents and that sort of stuff. And I do think about this a lot because Wagga itself didn't provide the feeling that you kind of get in a city of just being around and things happening and moving.
Yep.
And it's easy to be inspired, I find, in a big city.
Yep.
You see wealth more, and you see a lot more diversity and whatnot. And so like Wagga itself, I don't think provided that.
Okay.
So it was on reflection, it was very much like your own environment.
Yeah.
I think like my parents always encouraged me to just, like, looking back, we just didn't have iPhones and shit. So like, I don't know what it was, but like we would always be watching ABC News, and like the content that they consumed was the content that I would consume.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have friends at school that were sort of worldly as well. Like I think back about the friends that I hung around who have all left Wagga and are all doing incredibly well themselves now. And so like, I think the conversations we had, but I don't know what it was, but I was trying to do businesses from when I was literally, you know, 6 years old, selling painted rocks out the front of my house.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what it was. Like I came across Buffett early. I think I just was obsessed with the idea of entrepreneurship, or what an entrepreneur was, like building things and building wealth. Yeah. And I don't know how that came about. Dad had tried starting businesses many times. He was a farmer, then went and bought his own businesses and tried doing that. So yeah.
Was he successful?
Like he's been successful in business.
Yeah.
But I think the most success actually came for working for other people.
Okay.
I don't think he'd look back and be like, I was a successful businessman.
Yeah.
And
that's
but
okay,
always
by that,
trying
'cause it's-
different
yeah, 'cause
things.
it's
He was
different people.
So I don't know. I can't really answer it, but I think like my parents were always encouraging us to look beyond Wagga in a way.
Have you got siblings?
Yes.
What have you got?
Just a younger sister.
Yeah, so you were the eldest.
Yeah.
You're the eldest boy. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It's
I
funny,
think-
like I
I
always
think-
like trying to unpack this stuff.
There's probably there's a narrative through line in Bryce's story that he's probably left out, which is that like you were always a very high performer, like you know, almost cycled for Australia, but was like a junior cycling champion. Almost made it to the AFL. Well, made it to the AFL draft camp and stuff like that, representing New South Wales. So, like, I think there was always an element of high performance in your upbringing.
Competitiveness.
Yeah.
Sport always brings that around.
Yeah.
But there was always something in me about wanting to create a business and make money. I don't know what it was. Yeah.
So interesting.
I mean, that's not unique. A lot of people want to be rich.
Yeah, I know.
You know what's funny though on reflection, man? Like it's funny how many. Sorry, just to throw it back to myself for 1 second, man. I never wanted to start a business. And now I've got a massive team and building it all like that. And I think it's funny, man, because like some people fall into it and then some people have like a passion for it. And that's why it's like, sometimes it's so interesting to try and unpack and find what it is. But like you said, you've done a lot of self-reflection on it. You don't even know where that comes from. But maybe falling into the Buffett side of things early, and then obviously having the hyper competitiveness of sport, and then like, and being hyper competitive in sport, plus your parents putting the news on and consuming all that and probably seeing, different things like that. But again, then not being around a wealthy environment as well. Like it's it's funny. It's interesting.
Yeah. We weren't rich or anything like that.
Were you poor?
I would say so. Mum went through a really significant health problem. She had cancer, effectively.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that wiped out her income for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So I would say single income for a large part of my schooling. Also at a time where Dad was in business himself, and I think that was incredibly stressful, and the business just effectively didn't do very well, and probably lost money on that. Yeah. And so like from a financial standpoint, I look back and it's like they would very save for the family holiday, and that it was just one a year or one every 2 years or whatever it was, but like and we weren't at private schools, and we never got the new iPhone or whatever it was. So I wouldn't say we were poor, but we weren't rich. Yeah. And I think that has had an impact on how I think about money as well. Yeah. But they were very particular about how they taught us to manage and think about money as well, which I think has had a massive impact on.
So you came from very like frugal. It was a very frugal sort of household, do you think?
It wasn't frugal, but it was just understanding the value of money.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was just like You have to earn it, and then when you earn it, you have to be responsible with it. And there are ways to be responsible with it, but you also can grow your money and build wealth from what you have. So we were kind of taught invest, spend, save, really, from a young age.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, man.
But my dad's frugal, and my grandpa was super frugal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So much so, yeah. So
that's interesting, man. It's interesting to sort of like try and piece it together, you know, like where that come from. But like you said, it sounds like you've done a lot of self-reflection on it yourself, but then never kind of really, it's probably a combination of all of it, right? That has probably built it, well, undoubtedly, I guess, has built it into what you are now and the way you think and the way you act and that drive that sort of came through as well. So,
yeah.
Because you guys, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you've got one podcast that does okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've built this huge thing, these two standout performing podcasts, these two massive books.
Yeah.
Everything else has gone with it. And you're still pushing, you're still reiterating as well. So it's funny, man, like unpacking the drive that's obviously there. It's obviously very apparent to see. So it's cool, man. It's cool.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Ren, mate. Let's try that hat to you.
Well, I wasn't a high performing athlete like Bryce or anything like that. So I reckon if I think back, there's probably more of a media through line than a business through line for me. So like, you know, primary school, I started the school newspaper and like edited the school newspaper, the Linfield Link.
Okay, here we go. Linfield Link.
I don't think it still exists, but
let's revive it.
And you know, like the idea of like journalism and stuff like that was always really front of mind for me. So there's probably like a media through line there. But then, and like, you know, like I was really lucky growing up. Like I went to a private school and like, you know, we were comfortable. Money was always a stressor though. You know, it's one of those things where we were definitely a family where our expenses scaled with income. And so there was just a stressor of growing up, and you clock that as a kid. And so I think there has always, and I guess for me continues to be, the idea that like money is a big enabler in life. And like if you can get to that point where it isn't like it doesn't hold you back. It doesn't dictate your choices. You have more flexibility and freedom in your life. And I think, but the stock market or like money and like growing wealth was never really a thing for me growing up. It was get a good job, save for a deposit, build a house, buy a house, pay off your mortgage. Like that's the Australian dream. And it was really only when I met Bryce that the whole world of the stock market opened up. And for me, that was like a real eye opener where it was like, okay, there's something here that like we can all take advantage of, and it can really open some doors and build some like choice and flexibility in your life.
Yeah, sweet.
So for me, I'm not sure I am as driven as, you know, you guys or any of the other people you're speaking to, but I think there's like always been a media through line. I think Bryce and I, when we met, we tried to start a bunch of businesses when we were at uni. They all failed until this one. And then, just like money and like what money can mean to people in their lives is probably the other side of it.
Yeah. That's cool, man. So you've come from that bit of wanting the financial security of like a good job and then the house and pay that off. So like the Australian psyche of, because you came from that lack of abundance, I guess, as well. Yeah, well, no. So like that's what mum and dad grew up being like that, you know, the way to build wealth in Australia is through the family home. Yeah. And then it wasn't until you kind of,
till I met Bryce, understood you could punt on stocks.
Are you a gambler?
No, but I think early days of uni, you had the sports bet account and you were watching a lot of sport. And I remember when I was first introduced to the stock market, I think like one of my first revelations was like, you can make much more sensible decisions and like you can make informed bets and stuff like that. That was kind of like my leap across. Not like I was betting heaps, but you know, I was young and dumb and then you start to understand the stock market more and you realize that investing really isn't like gambling, and that's where it really took off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how old were you boys when you met?
We would have been 21, 20.
19 for me. I went straight from school. Yeah,
I had a gap year and then uni. Yeah, interesting. So met first year uni in Canberra.
And so you were already investing in stocks at the time?
Yes. Yeah. I had been investing. So my investing story goes back to kindergarten. I actually went home to Wagga the other day and found
Your investing started in kindergarten.
Well, the investing.
You are a freak.
The investing journey.
Okay.
So Dolomites. Remember Dolomites?
I do. Yeah.
So I actually went home and found it.
Bro, I remember that, man. I still comes into my head all the time.
Yeah.
Biggest fugazi ever.
Mate,
Australian
best customer
financial
acquisition
history.
cost in the business.
The best.
Sign people up when they're 5. Get their parents to put money in their account.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So 1997, I wrote in the front cover, I got this book, 1997 or kindergarten. First slip, a mum and dad put a deposit down of $3 and then I put 50 cents in. And then the next slip, it was just 50 cents. And then it grew. And then I've got these photos of how that would be split, bank, saving, fish food. Food. I've got a scale here. So the story was mum and dad sat me down in kindergarten. I still remember it. And they were like, all right, we're going to try and, well, they didn't say it in these terms. We're going to try and teach you about money.
Interesting.
And so I got $1.50 a fortnight in 3 50-cent coins.
Yep.
They put it on the bench in a row, and 50 cent had to go into a pot that had investing on it. 50 cent had to go into a savings pot, and then they would call it the spending pot.
Okay.
And so that was for fish food or whatever I had at the time. I think I spent 10 years. 10 years trying to save for a boogie board or whatever it was.
It's a long
And then
10 years.
it literally took, I scrolled to the end of that book, it took years to save the first $500 that you need to invest in the stock market at the time. And so then I took that $500 and dad had invested it on my behalf and tried to teach me about the Buffett style of just continuously buying something diversified and chipping away at that. And so that was kind of year 6. And then that got me interested because you then had the ticker in the newspaper every time it came. You could check it, look it up and down, and you eventually start to get, that one went up 10% this week. Why is that? That went down. And dad would be talking through it. And then fast forward to sort of the end of uni where I then got that transferred across to me. Yep. And then we met at uni and I started taking it a little bit more seriously and because I could start trading myself.
Yeah.
But
that was the start.
That's cool, man. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I think there's a real lesson in there for any parents listening. It's like teaching financial literacy early and not just the saving side of financial literacy, but like the growing wealth side.
Yep.
So important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. That's the thing, hey, because like it's so interesting, man. Like you can't save your way to retirement. You can't save your way to the financial freedom that you ultimately want. And it's a conversation we often have a lot of time with clients at Australian Property Scout. It's the idea that you want to pay your home off before building any investments, it just, in my head, it just doesn't make sense. Because if it took you, even if you fast tracked and paid it off in 10 years, what could you build in 10 years in the meantime from a portfolio perspective, or whether it's stocks, shares, properties, whatever it is, what could you do in that time frame? Because we can never get time back. And like, you look at the last 10 years of property in Australia, imagine if you'd sat that out to pay your home off rather than go and build wealth somewhere else and build a portfolio as well. So I love that idea of, saving to an extent, but obviously investing a portion of it and getting that investment out there. And the fact you were taught that in kindergarten, man, or like going into year 6, start doing stuff like that, man, that's crazy. That's absolutely wild. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, super fortunate to be honest. And I don't know, like I look like they weren't huge investors themselves. They were obviously doing it. Grandpa was able to live off his investments later in life. So I think it's always sort of been part of the conversation at home. Yeah. But I think very, very fortunate. And that's something I'll definitely take through. Yeah.
But again, exactly as you both say there, it's one of those things, like if we can help pass it on to people of like actually be thinking about it. And people are listening to whether it's this, top 1% or whether it's Equity Mates or whether it's, Scouting Australia or whatever it is, like trying to pass that knowledge on as well. Because I even think about it, man, kids aren't on the horizon for me, but I even think about it. Like when I have kids, I want to make sure they're financially literate. Like I don't care what I've got at the time when they're 18, I want them to be knowledgeable enough, or earlier than that, working jobs and stuff, and making sure they've got the right psyche around money, not that just like, dad's going to pay for everything and we've got money as a family. It's like, nah, what's Shaq saying? That ain't your money, that mom. You know what I mean? That ain't our money, that mom money, or whatever it is. And it's so true, but man, because like if they grow up with that thinking of just like it's there, it's a handout, you're not going to grow up wanting to actually learn how to do it. And you see so often whether they win the lotto, whether they inherit it or whatever, if they haven't been taught the common sense around money and how to manage it, it's gone so quickly. So I think it's really cool, man. It's obviously a massive hats off to your parents for passing that on to you, man, and now you being able to sort of pass on to the next gen as well. It's sick. So I love that, man. I love that. Boys, fast forwarding then to Equity Mates, getting to the point of So you guys meet at 19, 20, 21, and we're fast forwarding through to Equity Mates. How long is that from there to now?
So 2016, we started speaking about it, and 2017, we launched the first episode. So that was, I left uni 2016, you would have left uni 2015. So at this stage, we'd had some business ideas. None of them had really gone anywhere in uni. Bryce had gone and got a graduate job at Woolies.
Yeah. And
then the following year, I went and got a graduate job at Coles. I promise you I wasn't copying him. It's just the only company that would hire me.
Thanks, Coles.
He was in Sydney. I was in Melbourne.
Okay.
But
how old were you at this time?
Early 20s.
So that would have been 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 25.
Okay.
But like we caught the investing bug. Like we wanted to keep learning about investing, and I had the bright idea that we should start an investing blog where we, share our ideas and make it public. And thank God Bryce talked me out of doing a blog, because I'm not sure blogs have done that well in the 10 years since.
I was going to say that you're a little behind there. Bryce is in front of the curve.
But Bryce suggested, we listened to a few podcasts, but there weren't really many podcasts, especially in Australia in the business section.
Yep.
And Bryce suggested, why don't we do a podcast instead? And so early 2017, sitting outside on the balcony of Bryce's share house, one microphone between the two of us, birds chirping, cars driving past, terrible audio quality. We just started.
Are they still up?
Yeah.
They still exist. Yeah.
Seriously, cringe.
Yeah.
How many apps are you guys in now on Equity?
Well over 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get someone to scroll for me.
Yeah.
Once it's there,
It's a lot.
I think you can flip
Oh,
the
you
feed.
can just
You can
Google
sort.
search it. Just Google search it.
Yeah, sick. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
What is value? I think it's like
No, the journey begins.
The journey begins.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we
And
knew it
it's
would
like,
be a
what
journey,
were
I
we even
guess.
thinking? Yeah, we just went straight into, all right, we're going to talk about value investing. It's like,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
straight
we've gotta
into
start.
it.
We've gotta start somewhere,
There-
right?
There's something really like beautiful about the naivety of young people who just think they can do something.
Yeah.
And it's like, as you get older, you lose that like just carefree, like, let's just go.
Yeah.
But we thought it made sense to do this. Two guys who had no media experience, didn't study finance, didn't work in finance, to do a show learning about finance.
Yeah.
But I think for us, like the important thing there was we didn't have ambitions to build a business.
Okay.
For us, like the payoff was we could go and get interesting people to speak to us.
Yeah.
We could learn, and the payoff would be in the investing returns.
Yeah.
Like this was still a play
Interesting.
to like scratch our own itch and to make money as investors.
We just wanted to invest.
Yeah. And
So that was the vision. It wasn't to build anything big. It was to learn from
we
people.
were in early days corporate careers, so we were
Interesting.
I still had the corporate bug suit.
Yeah.
Going in, wanted to climb the ladder at corporate world.
And it's this classic situation that I reckon a lot of Australians find themselves in, where they are earning more than they're spending for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
They can't afford a house. Their savings account isn't paying much, and they're trying to figure out what to do with their money.
Yeah.
And like that was where we were. We didn't know about Australian Property Scout, that we could go and buy a $400,000 house somewhere. And,
What could have been?
but yeah, so
Back then, bro, it would have been like 250.
yeah. I know. So for us, like the stock market was this avenue to start
Accessible.
building wealth
Yeah.
with small amounts of money.
Yes.
And so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to, work our corporate jobs, climb the corporate ladder, and do this. And I reckon for the first year and a half, no one listened.
I think we had 1,000 downloads or something.
Yeah,
In
like,
18 months.
Probably in the first year.
First year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
like
we're-
podcasting was still very infant in Australia.
Okay, true.
there wasn't really like an advertising business model around it. Like,
There was no Australian focused
Hamish
finance.
and Andy
Yeah.
was still on the radio, I think, at that
Yeah,
stage, or they may have just been making their transition to podcast only.
Yeah.
It was only a couple of years earlier that Serial really launched podcasting into the mainstream in the US.
Yeah.
If you remember that one, that Serial was like the seminal moment in podcasting history.
Really?
Where it like pushed into the mainstream.
What is Serial? I don't even know what Serial is.
It's like a true crime podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Huge.
good. It's good stuff.
Really?
But yeah, it was the first one that like broke into the public consciousness of
Yep.
people. Because, like Mark Maron and stuff were podcasting before then.
Yeah.
But it was like super niche.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
Interesting.
Serial is the moment in podcasting history, 2014. Yeah.
What was your moment in podcasting history where it turned and where you realized you were onto something?
I think we knew we were onto something because we were continuing to grow.
Okay.
Like that we just were slowly chugging away. Sort of first 2 or 3 years, we continued to take the paycheck from Woolies and Coles, and continued to do it for the love of it. But then as we started the Facebook group and started to get feedback from our audience, opened up the email and started getting people asking questions through email, it was when we started getting engagement that we were like, okay, we're actually engaging with people.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were ever like, we have something here, but because up until that point, podcasting wasn't really a business. No one had really shown how you can successfully make money from it.
Yeah.
Then Joe Rogan signed the $100 million deal with Spotify, and it was kind of like,
I think
okay.
that might have been a bit later, but
a little bit later, but like that was a moment
Yeah.
when globally people were like, okay, there's actually money in podcasting.
Yeah.
But like we were wanting to leave work for a long time, sort of thinking like there is something here, but shit, like what is it? And it's a massive risk for us.
And how do we monetize it?
How do we monetize? Like we're in great jobs, we're doing well at corporate, like we can see that that's going to keep going.
Yeah.
And like we've got this nice little thing here.
Bubbling away.
How do we do anything with this?
Yeah.
And so I remember we would be walking to and from the studio every week, just kind of like, you know, here's this idea. Here's this idea. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then I think eventually we just had enough of a mass of audience that we were making I think we're making about 80 grand a year.
Okay.
And that
From
was
advertising.
From
Yeah,
advertising,
okay.
yeah. And that was when I think Ren was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to just... You did the slowest walk I've ever seen. You were like, I'm going to quit. And they were like, no, you're not. And so then you're like, I'm going to go 4 days a week. And then you're like, I'm going to go 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And then you went part-time or whatever it was.
Then I moved back to Sydney.
Then you moved back to Sydney.
For the first 3 years, so 17, 18, 19, I was still in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so this was like a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of like online recordings. And then like I would come to Sydney and record in the Batuta studio and stuff like that. And it was end of 2019. Yeah. After I'd done this slow walk for like 8 months.
Ages.
Then I was like, I'm going to move back to Sydney. And then we negotiated an arrangement where I would, on my own dime, fly down to Melbourne 1 week a month and work in the office. And then the rest of the time I could work remotely.
Okay.
And so that worked for a little while. But then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that arrangement went out the window and everyone was working from home. And then I just never went back to Melbourne.
But if there was an inflection point moment, COVID was in the inflection point.
COVID was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it just exploded.
Yeah. We had an audience and it tripled overnight.
Wow. Overnight.
Yeah.
Like really?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah,
within the couple of months.
A couple of months,
hit, everyone at home, government handouts, cash to burn, saving money, not spending, stock market going crazy. And so we just saw
FOMO, crypto ripping. It was,
of course.
yeah.
So we just saw a huge influx.
Yeah.
And then so that was our moment. We're like, this is it.
Yeah.
Quit our jobs.
Yeah.
2020.
Had you already signed some like bigger advertising packages at that time?
We had enough that we were like, we had enough confidence that the audience was there that we just needed to go out and hustle.
Okay. To get those.
We still at that time, like we weren't making enough to pay ourselves fully. So we raised a convertible note from someone who was like, you guys have to quit. There's something here.
Yeah.
And I think it was what, $100,000?
We raised $100,000, which for us was
and that
like,
got us started.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to have a safety net, so I took 12 months leave without pay.
Okay.
So if all else shit hit the fan, I could go
go
back to
back.
work.
Yeah.
6 months in though.
Half pregnant though. Like I burnt the boat. So I was like, see ya. Bryce always had 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
6 months into that though, I just said, don't worry about it. We're going to be sweet. Yeah. Because not too long after that, we ended up raising 1.2 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because we managed to convince people that podcasting was a business and that our audience was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And so from there we were like, all right, let's go.
Raising 1.2 mil. What did you do with that? Like, what do you do with that capital in a space like this?
It was really around, the thesis at the time was we wanted to create a number of shows around the audience that we built to try and build a podcast network. So the money went into hiring a very small team to do that. Marketing.
FinFest. That's when the plan started there.
Yeah, of course.
And then I mean, like, it's just given us runway for the last however many 5 years, 6 years, or whatever. Yeah. And like, so we burnt and slowly the burn got smaller and then shifted to profit. And yeah, it just got us going.
It took off from there.
It was a good time to raise money. But I think the big thing for us that we got lucky with, got lucky with, was that everyone we raised from had come on the podcast.
Okay.
And so they had some positive experience where like they were a financial advisor and they'd got new clients, or they were like a fund manager or a product issuer, and they'd seen like the spike in interest and website traffic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for us, like, because we've tried to pitch VCs and different seed funds and stuff over the years, and trying to pitch a media business is so hard.
Yeah, of course.
But like all these
It's
people,
all down to you guys.
Yeah. And like media is highly competitive, low margin. But all these people had sort of felt the effects, and so they didn't need to be convinced in the same way, which was nice.
Out of curiosity, why didn't you start something off the back of it? Like, there's an advertising perspective, right? Because like, just for on my side, right? Like, I started the podcast because it helped feed a service-based business. Yeah. The more that I build that up, the more clients I get from that.
Top of funnel. Yeah.
So was there anything, or have you ever thought of or looked at or anything from that end that was like a branch off of that you guys can, or is that?
We're always thinking about that.
Okay.
Because we to Ren's point, like we recognize the value that we create for everyone that comes on the show.
For sure.
Like, we know that millions and millions of dollars have been invested in products that we've spoken about on the show, 100%. That if we could have that product ourselves, we could be, taking it in. But I think early days, like, we were still trying to, like, we weren't even thinking of ourselves as, I guess, as doing that. Like, we were still just learning about investing. Like, we were still just still in that mindset of like, where we just happen to be engaging a lot of people and they're coming on the journey with us. Yeah. It wasn't really like, this is a business that we're going to really turn into like a financial services juggernaut. It's only like in the last couple of years that we have, I guess, put more of the business hat on and gone, shit, we actually create a lot of value. But I think whenever we sit down and decide which route to go, it's like, we want to make sure that it adds value and it's not something that already exists in market. And sort of thinking through that is something that is important and takes time.
Yeah.
I guess it's one of those things too, like thinking about it after I asked the question, you were talking about that. It's almost also gives you a hands off of like, it's like it's all in a way like a non-vested. I'm not constantly pushing this or that.
Independent.
Yeah. Best way to put it.
The irony is though that by staying independent without having your own product to push, you end up relying on advertising, so you have to push everyone else's product to some extent. But like the beauty of it for us, I guess, is because deliberately we work with so many advertisers. We're not planting our flag hard in one camp or the other, and so like having a breadth of advertisers also does maintain that independence.
I also look at like some of what we did early days, and like we moved quickly with a lot of things, and then some of those things we've kind of wound back. So I think what we have really focused on over the last couple of years is just still trying to be really good at the core of what we do, because every time we do that, opportunity presents itself. The bigger this audience gets, the better we are, the bigger the brand. Like, we're confident that things will happen down the track. It's kind of like, what's the rush?
Makes sense.
Like we've only been in business 8 years. Like, that's, well, not even like if you exclude like the podcast, but like the business itself is 5 years.
Yeah, well, we only incorporated 2020.
It's 5 years. You look at businesses that you think are overnight successes, and they've been around for 20 years.
Yeah, 100%.
So like, it's kind of like,
but then you have that business, that cybersecurity business that Google bought for $32 billion, which had only been in business for 5 years. So what are we doing?
There's always anomalies.
So it's like, as long as we can keep doing what we're doing, keep earning money, keep growing slowly.
The opportunities will come.
Yeah,
that's true.
And particularly in media. Like, media has this, like, I said before it was a terrible business model. But like, it has this outsized power because it's like getting an audience is so hard. And like, we've done the hard part in some ways in building that audience. So we're not in a rush to then like figure out some cheap way to monetize it. Because like, if you think about like the range of financial services, like, people have said we should do everything. We should start our own fund. Well, like, there are pretty good fund managers out there that charge very low fees. Like, what are we going to add value there? Or like, you should start your own investment platform. And like, there's 30 something online investment platforms in Australia now. Like, does the world need the 31st?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like you go down the list and it's like, where can we actually aggregate the audience that we have and do something that others can't do
And add
to
serious
make
value.
to make investing easier or more accessible or more understandable. And right now that's talking shit on a podcast, and at some point there'll be something else.
I like the approach, man. It was actually always ticked over in my mind. I've always kind of wanted to ask you guys around that as well, but I thought it was good, and I completely understand the answers that come off the back of it as well. Because man, if you guys are doing well now and you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're not going to butcher it by trying to push something that you think is not going to add value, that makes complete sense. Like why bring something in that's just going to detract from the value you guys currently bring? And I was kind of thinking about it even as you were saying that last piece there, and I'm like, you guys are so open with like what you do and what you give out, you know what I mean? So it's like you don't want to almost like pull something away to then monetize it on that end, because you get so much buy-in from that. So that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, guys. I was just curious around it.
But hey, we should say, if you've got any ideas, let us know.
We'll talk off there.
We're always talking.
We'll talk off there. If you were to just have a chat with someone starting their podcast, or someone's been running a podcast and haven't seen the same sort of growth, I'm asking this for a friend. To build something into the juggernaut that you boys have, what would be the number one thing you would put it down to?
Consistency. Yeah.
Time and consistency.
Same as investing. Compound effect. I think like there is no magic bullet, and I'm going to be like brutally honest as well. If you want to start something like this today, it'd be bloody hard to do. I don't think we could build what we've built today starting from scratch. Like I just think we had so many fortunate tailwinds,
and there's so much competition
behind us, and especially with AI and stuff, and the ability now, you know, create content at almost a zero cost. Pay $20 a month, you got ChatGPT, and you can turn it into God knows what. Like it would be incredibly difficult. So, but having said that, if you are to do it, building an audience really has the biggest thing is like, I think authenticity, but then time. Like we have done an episode every single week for 8 years. We have never missed an email going out, and it's just like constantly showing up. Yeah. And it's taken 8 years. Like people think that you're going to do this overnight. Yeah.
There were people that were smarter than us, that were better at media than us, that, you know, were just everything better than us. But they just gave up.
You have to keep going.
And we just naively or whatever just kept doing it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? It's crazy you say that. And I kind of put it in perspective, because I was thinking, you boys started it in COVID, like or around that sort of, like that was just what was in my head. And I was like, that's why you've had this huge run, which obviously it helped during that piece. But man, I look at the numbers, and then I look at the 8 years compared to me at 2.5 years, and I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm in this for 8 years,
you're doing great for 2.5 years.
Dude, I'm pumped, but I'm always like you with your AFL and the cycling. I'm just hyper competitive as well. You know what I mean? So I love to assess what someone else is doing or has done, and how did they do it. Yeah. But it's man, like you said, it's and we always want to get better, right? Like, and I think it's one of those things, man. You look at that piece, that time and consistency, like you said, is the biggest thing you would put it down to. And then sometimes you have those periods like COVID, but you've got to be in there for it to be benefit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We were set. We've been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like when a market crashes, you need to have done the work to know what assets you're going to buy when the market crashes. Yeah. You need to be set. You need to be ready. You need to have your foundations.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing I want to pick up on that Bryce said, because I don't want to discourage people, you know, what you said about it would be impossible to start what we did today. I agree in podcasting 100%. Yeah. But like, if you want to start a media company, you got to stop thinking about platforms. You got to stop thinking, I'm a podcaster, I'm a YouTuber. Because we've seen, like, even in the time we've been doing this, the podcast opportunity that we had in 2017 arrive, and like the one that comes to mind for me is TikTok in 2020. Yeah. Like if you were there and you started then, I have no doubt you would be killing it. Like you would have to be average. If you were below average, but you were consistent from 2020, you would be, you know, massive now.
Interesting.
And it's like these platform moments arrive in this world that we live in, and like if you see it early and you get set early and you go, like you got a chance.
Would you say there's anything sitting there at the moment do you think would be it?
Threads. Yeah. No. I don't reckon there's anything at the moment. Yeah. Like YouTube is still super powerful, but it's big. But I just am so confident there will be another.
If you're not
else,
playing in AI now, though, I think like you would probably be missing a beat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the second point, though, that I would say to, what would I say to someone trying to start now, applicable to you, applicable to us, is if you think that you're going into it to make money from the get-go, you're going to make the wrong content decisions.
Yeah.
And therefore you're not going to be able, you're not truly going to create good content from the start. We took a paycheck from corporate for 5 years that allowed us to create a podcast with no commercial, I guess, influence. Very little commercial influence. We never felt pressured that we had to do this content. Otherwise, we were going to not survive, not eat.
I get you.
And so that allowed us to truly be authentic and whatnot. And I figure the same for you guys. Like the podcasts you're doing are not for the love of it, creating good content. You've got an income stream elsewhere.
Yeah.
So if you're going to start something like this, and you have the ability to take income from somewhere else, that would be the kind of the building block to do it.
Don't quit the day job.
Don't quit the day job.
As long as possible.
Because content is king, really.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's all brand, right? Like you look at The Rock, you look at Conor McGregor, like these blokes that started a tequila company and get it to $1 billion valuation in a couple of years. It all comes off the back of what they've built initially. And that's why it makes so much sense what you're saying before. There's no point butchering something now when the correct opportunity hasn't presented itself. Yeah. Maybe it's a tequila company. Maybe it's Equity Mates Tequila.
Well,
I would come in on that. I love tequila.
We have spoken about Equity Grapes.
Okay.
Wine brand.
Okay. All right. I'll leave you boys to that one, but if you ever come to tequila, I'll jump on board.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you can think of as good a name for tequila,
that is pretty good. That is pretty good. All right, boys. Beautiful. Going to the next phase. Actually, sorry, one thing I did want to ask about, obviously you've interviewed so many people over all the years. And like you said, you did it initially to get access to people and to kind of pick their brain a little bit, but be able to do it on this platform, which is pretty intelligent to have been able to think of all the way back then as well. Would you say there's been any light bulb moment episodes or conversations that really stand out to you boys that change the way you think about things, either investing or podcasting or anything?
Change the way we think about things. I reckon probably no that come to mind.
Okay. I'm going to take that personally, but
but I guess what I'm going to say is that the cumulative effect of talking to these people has changed the way I think about things, if that makes sense. I've certainly come to understand that you don't need to be an expert in this field to build wealth in the stock market. Yeah. Like we've learned a lot about that. We've learned a lot about strategies to build wealth. I don't think there's any that I've sort of, at least that I can pinpoint right now. We've spoken to over 500 people.
Yeah, so. Over 1,000 apps. It kind of sounds like, or feels like, it's almost like the compounding, like you were talking about before, the compounding cumulative effect of like this 1% here and here and here and here. It's just built you into this, built you boys with the knowledge base. That's just, surpassing and where it is now. Yeah. So
I reckon it's almost, it's like you come in with so many preconceived ideas and like we came in with ideas of how we should invest and stuff like that. But I think the biggest one that a lot of people come into the stock market particularly with, I'm not sure if it's the same in property, but there's this idea that there's one way to make money. Yeah. And like the whole information gathering process is to find the one way to make money. Yeah. And there are all these people telling you all these different things, but most of them are wrong, or they're just being influenced by social media or whatever. And like your job is to filter out the incorrect to find the correct. But that's not the case. Like I think what we've learned is that there are so many ways to make money. Yeah. And like different people make different money at different times and different amounts of money and stuff like that. But it's just like there's something that you can learn from, value investors and momentum investors. And, then you start introducing other asset classes, and like property has merit and stocks have merit and, alternatives have merit. And it's just like, it's this, as you said, this compounding thing. But it's like what you want to do is just learn a little bit from each of them and just like then have your own framework of like, there's heaps of ways to do this. Yeah. And it's not as hard as you thought. Yeah.
And I think I'd like your opinion on this as well, boys, but it's like I think it's very much personality based as well, in terms of like what aligns with you as an investing strategy. So for me, I'm a farm boy. I don't understand the share. Like I literally, even to this day, I don't even really understand the share market, stock market all that much. It's just not my cup of tea.
Sam, how long have we known each other?
Dude, man, I know.
Property, come on.
I know, but boys, the thing is, right, is like, and this is for me, like, for me, my two fortes that like it was property always for me early because I could buy something, I could renovate it, and then I figured out how to extract equity. So I became obsessed with that. And when I probably got into my late 20s, maybe I would have dabbled a little bit into stocks and shares and learnt that avenue, or maybe it would have been crypto at the time or something like that. But instead for me, I went down the business avenue. And so for me, my two forms of wealth creation is business and property. And so I definitely agree with you. It's having that hedge and having that split is so important. But I think, man, so often it comes down to like potentially your upbringing, but what like really aligns with you. Cause I never, like my family were never into it, but they had a couple of houses, you know, and I remember reading about Harry Triguboff when I was a kid and like, you know, high rise Harry at the time, 3,000 apartments worth like 5 billion. I'm like, what the hell? Like, and that just clicked with me and resonated with me. And then you get other people like, and I've got mates that came from very similar sort of upbringings to me, but they were always obsessed with the share market. And I just like, I don't know, it just didn't click for me, you know? And I think it's like like you say, it's like assessing all the different things and what aligns and what do you understand? Because I could go and try and invest in the share market. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I could study it for a year, but like how much lost opportunity would I have had in the property market of me doing it just because that's my skill set. So I think it's funny, man, like what aligns with you. And I think that's what I love about what you boys do. You get so many different advisors on in so many different fields, including property, and then your advisors, your shares, all the rest of the sort of stuff, ETFs, all that. And yeah, man, like learning all the different avenues, and then okay, what actually clicks in someone's head and aligns, and I understand that, so I can go out and implement that and have a crack at that. Whether you've got $1,000 or 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is. So that's cool, man. That makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. For me, like I was pretty lazy. I still reckon I am. Like when I think I'll work hard when something matters, and like we certainly work hard in this business. But like generally in life, like if there's an easy way and a hard way to do something, I probably just won't do it. And so like for me, like investing generally, but particularly like these index ETFs where you can just buy a little bit of everything, sort of set and forget. You just buy one product and you just keep buying it for your life. Like they're a great investment product for someone like me who doesn't want to do the work of, sleeping in a tent and renovating a house or, like studying individual companies, because all you're doing is just backing, literally millions of people who work for businesses whose whole incentive structure is to make you more money as a shareholder. And you can do it from the comfort of your couch, and then they'll go to work for you. Like that's appealing to me.
But again, man, everyone like different things for everyone. Right?
I'm subtly trying to convince you, Sam.
But like, dude, it makes sense for someone that like it is in a way as well. It's obviously a lot of a lower risk sort of process with that as well, and probably not as much. Definitely not as much like stress that would come alongside it as well. You kind of, if you're accepting of it and happy to go down that avenue, it's like, okay, no worries. Like that's my avenue that I want to invest in, and I'll let it do its thing. But the funny thing is, it's not the only thing you invest in, but obviously your business is your other main wealth creation vehicle. So it's like it goes back to the frame of like those multi forms of wealth creation as well, which I think is so important, man. So I love that, boys. Before we kind of move into the final stages of the potty as well, I did just want to ask you boys about the books. What inspired the books? Obviously, both big top sellers. It's funny, before I even met you boys, because I spent a lot of time at the airports flying around locations, going everywhere. Like, these guys are bloody everywhere, and then the new one was out, and I met you boys. I was like, bloody hell, this thing's going crazy. Talk to me about the books.
I actually can't remember why we decided to do one.
So the story is, publisher reached out and they were like, our business model, we want you to write a book. Our business model is you pay us 10 grand and you write the book, and then we'll publish it for you.
And you have to buy 10,000 books or something.
Yeah. And we were like, well, we're not interested in paying you for something that we do. Right. But then we were like, well, if there's someone reaching out to us, maybe there's other people who would be interested in publishing a book.
For sure.
And then we just put some feelers out, and there was interest, and then that sort of the rock started rolling down the hill. What we've learnt since, like if you're thinking about writing a book, don't do it for money. Because the book industry it's not a lucrative industry.
It's for brand, right?
It's good marketing. People see us in the airport and think, who are these guys?
Who's that bald guy? What does he do? He says, don't stress, invest.
And there's definitely like, we would tell people we host a podcast or, we big on social media or whatever, and people would kind of smirk. But it's like, oh, I'm a published author. Oh, I'm a best-selling author. I've written multiple books. There's a certain level of gravitas that comes with that, you know, that people see.
It's a pretty good
as,
flex, man.
People see it as more real, I guess.
More
so
tangible,
Yeah, so it's been good for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, would we write a third one? Probably not. Not if Bryce has as well.
Has it helped
Not me.
grow the podcast, do you think?
I think like you would say yes. In terms of like absolute numbers, it hasn't, like we couldn't say, oh my God, since we released the book, we've put on another 30,000 people.
Right.
But we've definitely had commentary and whatnot through people finding us saying, oh, I found your book and now I'm in the Facebook group.
Sick.
And
Yeah.
so from that point of view,
okay.
it has. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Worth the effort?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not for a third, because you've established yourselves now. Best-selling.
Worth
two
the
big
effort
ones.
because we knew what we were doing it for.
Okay.
If we were to say, was it worth the effort because we were doing it for revenue?
Monetarily.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the numbers, like, depending on the time of year, a bestseller in Australia is between 6,000 and 10,000 books sold.
Interesting.
Which is surprisingly low.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Depths of Winter is the lull. 6,000 books get you on the bestseller list. Peak Summer, 10,000 gets you there. Rough.
It's interesting. I
And-
would have thought the opposite. I know people sitting on a beach and chilling in the sun,
No,
but I
no,
also would
no.
have thought, I'm in my
Christmas.
dungeon.
Keep an eye out.
Christmas.
All the publishers save their best books for the Christmas period, that December period, because that's Christmas presents and stuff like
I
that.
got
And
offered
then
a July release.
holiday. So that's
That
when,
makes
like,
sense now.
your Steve Smith autobiography and your Recipe Tin Eats cookbook, like all the big hitters, that's when they'll go.
Okay, interesting.
Um,
Christmas, yeah, it makes sense.
authors get about 10 to 15% of the RRP of a book.
Yep.
So call it $30 book, $3 a book.
Yep.
You sell 10,000, you're on the bestseller list, you made 30 grand. So you got to be pumping out like a bestseller a year to even just be scratching like minimum wage.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's got to be for an ulterior purpose.
Yeah. Unless you get like the big Netflix deal or something, you know, like, or like some of those fiction books will sell hundreds and thousands. But
Of course, yeah. But it's like, what? How many?
Yeah.
It's a tiny percentage.
We're doing investing books. So. Unless
money.
in Spanish.
yeah.
No
So
idea how that's
if
going.
you don't mind me asking, how many? No idea how it's going. How many have you sold
So
copies
we
of
sold
each book
about 50,000.
50,000, yeah.
combined?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because this Don't Stress is Invest is the bestseller, right?
Oh no, they're both
Best-
bestsellers.
both
Yeah.
bestsellers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, the
yeah.
one that won the
Because
award.
yeah.
Yes.
Don't,
Don't-
yeah.
Don't Stress won the award.
Don't Get Started Investing has sold more. I think better title, better cover.
Yeah.
I really regret.
Is that tickets on yourself or?
No, I regret the second one. The publisher wanted to call it the 1 Minute Investor, and I was like, it's too close to the Barefoot Investor.
Yeah.
But God, the publisher was right.
Yeah?
Yeah,
right.
Because like the whole point of the second book was we wrote the first one, but heaps of our mates, our family would never read it. Like
Yeah.
they're just not interested in
Yeah,
investing.
yeah.
So we wanted to write a second book, which was like, here's the absolute simplest way to invest,
Yeah.
how you can automate it, and why that's enough.
Yeah.
And just give people the blueprint to then like never engage with us again.
Yeah.
But I don't think we conveyed that with the title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Lessons,
Anyway,
right? Lessons.
regrets.
Not a loss, mate. Any lessons.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool, boys. One final question again before I dive into my one final question before I dive into my final questions. Like you boys obviously speak to so many people. You have a finger on the pulse with so many, and even the conversations off air, like that we've had, that would be a bit different. But obviously in the finance space, in the every space, rather, you guys would be touching as well. What do you think is an emerging trend that really needs to be really looked at closely, or you think something is going to game change at the moment? Is there anything that comes to mind?
In finance or just
In general?
broadly?
Yeah. Anything that
Emerging-
excites you boys?
I mean, AI, you can't look at turn
Yeah, of
away
course.
from. Like, I think it's pretty incredible what's happening in the space
Yeah.
and the speed at which products are being developed, and I think the impact that it is going to have on our lives. Integration into business, how businesses become more efficient, the impact that it's going to have on literal, I guess, people's careers over the next decade. Investing implications. I think we're at a point now where if you can get the investment side right, there's a shitload of wealth to be created over the next however many years.
Yep.
We're experimenting with it here. So yeah, it's, I just look back 2 years ago when ChatGPT was first released. Was it 2 years ago or even, and just how crazy a moment we're in right now. It's like, it's wild.
Yeah.
And these businesses that have been the market leader, we're discussing the impact it's having on Google and these businesses that have been around for decades that have owned 95% market share and look unbeatable. we're now seeing a competitor come to the market.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, hey?
it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really
And
is.
the use cases that we're hearing, in 10 years, all diseases will be solved. And
Are you hearing that?
yeah.
Oh.
The deep mind guys have come out, the ex-Google
All
guys.
diseases
DeepMind.
would be solved.
Yeah, they're like, we'll solve all
I guess if
diseases
they're continually working on
in 10 years,
on
supercomputers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know how, I don't
20
know
years
practically.
Terminator, T800.
It is
T1000.
it's scary, but it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
eh?
I reckon. So I reckon we undercook the future. So I think Peter Thiel has this quote that we were promised flying cars and we got Facebook.
Okay.
And it's like for the last 15 years of technological innovation, it's
Yep.
all been just apps and
Yep.
internet-based stuff.
Yep.
And we haven't had massive hardware innovation.
Yep.
But it's coming, and I think we undercook the profound impact it'll have. So AI is one, but self-driving cars. I was watching a video last night of a Tesla driving someone home.
Yeah.
Fully self. It's here. Waymo. You can order a self-driving taxi in 5 cities in America now. And I think then commercial space flight is going to absolutely change the game. The International Space Station is being retired in 2 years, and we're going to have commercial private space stations, and people will start to be able to do space tourism. It's only going to be the rich, but massive leap forwards in hardware are going to come in the next 2 or 3 years. And then things like synthetic biology, the AI applications there, there's a lot that's going to change in our physical world, which I reckon the last sort of 15 years of innovation has kind of been undercooked in that space.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at a strap in. I think things are going to be.
So we kind of had that technology boom up to, which hasn't really transitioned that far past today. Because you remember how everything changed with phones and TVs and everything. It went from everything being a brick of a phone or a freaking box of a TV to then everything being slim over a few years. But there's almost been that lull, hey, where nothing really has been innovated other than say a Tesla.
Yeah.
The electric engines and stuff like that. But it hasn't been
It's just
that much outside.
all capital, all smart people have
Yeah.
kind of been pushed into this
Innovation phase.
software
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
And then, there's been a bunch of people that's been pushed into crypto as well.
Yeah.
But if that's where all the talent and all the money is going, of course, that's where the innovation is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think that's starting to change. Yeah.
Interesting, man. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, watch this space.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Very interesting. I agree, man. All this sort of stuff is exciting for what's to come, right? Speaking of that, what's to come? What's next? What's cooking up for Equity Mates? You've always got anything interesting?
I think
you've done everything so far.
Well, I don't know. You could look at it and say we've done a lot, or you could look at it and say we're still very early.
Okay.
I think we alluded to we're reaching 500,000 people, but we want to be reaching 1 million people.
Okay.
We have these opportunities to plug in different products and whatnot, and we're kind of taking our time to think through that. So I'd love to say we've got these this huge, big, wild plan of we're going to become this, the Charles Schwab of finance in Australia. But it's really just focusing on what we're doing and being better at it, reaching more Australians, helping them with their financial literacy. And I think we've both been pretty good naturally at recognizing opportunities when they come, figuring out which ones to pursue, and then sort of slowly integrating that. So the plan is just get bigger, get better,
get jacked.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
Bigger in every way.
Jacked, I love it. Buy some property. Yeah. So I think we're I do look at businesses that do seem like overnight successes, and just we are still early days.
100%. I think it's crazy, because so many businesses fail in the first 12 months, or let's say 3 to 5 years.
It's 3 years.
And I think once you get past that 5 to 8 year window now, it's funny because you start to go, if you're doing the right things, you kind of go on a different trajectory, and it's okay, well, if we're going on a different trajectory now, say year 8, and we're in our 7th year of business as well. And I can see the change of from years 4 and 5 compared to where we are now. It's light years apart. And it's what's that going to look like in 5 years or 10 years, let alone 12 months, 24 months? What's that going to actually look like in 5 to 8 years when we hit the 15-year mark? I can only imagine the same thing for you guys now. Because I kind of feel like it's almost you're almost like that sniper just waiting for something to come in your sights. You know what I mean? Like you've built this thing, you've been sitting in this spot and like building the perfect position, building it up, and then you're just waiting for that thing. You know what I mean?
Which is ironic because like most business leaders would say, don't wait, like keep going, keep doing things. Whereas we're
but the thing is,
what we're doing
being
is
selective.
just,
you know what I mean? Like you are still building this beast. Like, man, 600,000 people reached in a month is crazy, dude.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think also what is probably not recognized, but like, well, I guess it is, but like behind the scenes, like to keep doing what we're doing doesn't just mean we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. It's like every 6 months we're sitting down. What new segments are we doing? Like, are we on the right platforms? How are we going hard enough on video? How do we keep innovating and in I guess, engaging the audience and meeting the right, being where our audience is. Yeah. So it's like, yes, we've been podcasting, but like the change that has happened even on Equity Mates in 8 years, even in the last 18 months, it's like, so it's not like we're just sitting here being like, oh, we'll wait for something to happen. It's like constantly innovating, constantly trying to test new things, but with the purpose of just, I guess, continuing to focus on the core.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think what we've become really passionate about is financial literacy in Australia is going backwards.
Yeah.
And that's not us just saying that. Like the government do these surveys and like it's not just we're plateaued. We are getting worse as a country. But at the same time, like financial hope, I feel is evaporating for a lot of people. Like there's a lot of belief that like our lives won't be as good as our parents' lives and like, you know, it's not worth, you know, trying to start a business and stuff like that because it's just all too hard and all that stuff. And for me, it's like if our media channels can play a role in like helping people engage with finance and learning more about finance and like building some optimism in like there are ways to build wealth and get ahead and stuff like that. For me, like that's the win. Like obviously it'd be nice to be profitable and then super profitable and then, you know, rich ourselves. But it's like, yeah, that's got to change.
Yeah.
Like that's what will really drag a country down if people feel like that tomorrow isn't going to be better than today and that it's not worth putting the effort in and investing in. Yeah.
Interesting, man. Interesting opinion.
Dour note to end it.
No. It's funny, man, because like I've had a lot of ideas like that percolating myself. Like you guys know, like our mission at Australian Property Scout, retire 500 people by 2030. We know we're on the pathway to hit that. We're going to hit that by 2030. We're already thinking about, well, what's the number for say 2035 or 2040? Nice. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be a lot bigger than 500 people because we'll have proven the model.
Have people retired? Have you retired anyone so far?
Well, there's a few that we have, but what you got to remember is property is like a compounding game, right? And so like so much wealth is built and then so you accumulate and then you might do a consolidation to accumulate to get where you're trying to go. So you can't really like in a 5-year window, if you're from a standing start, it's like you've got to go through a cycle, potentially 2 cycles, and with a consolidation piece in the middle to then build to another level, acquire cash flow, and then that third accumulation of growth could be to wipe out the cash flow. So that's why like I'm a firm believer that like depending what you're starting with, 5, 7, 10-year window is 100% achievable to retire on what you want to achieve. But you got to remember we just entered our 7th year in the business and like the last 3 to 4 years have been massive, but it's those 3 to 4 years that are now compounding into I think the next 2 to 3 years. I think those few hundred people are going to start to rack up and start to snowball. I honestly believe we'll be well over the 500 by 2030, but it's a compounding effect that takes time.
Jeez, we're going to be so jealous when we start seeing Sam's clients
I was going to say, if Sam can retire me in 7 years, I'm in.
Boys. I've got 2 final questions for you to wrap up, fellas. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor?
Oh, shit.
Put your head over the ball.
Yeah, put your head over the ball.
Best piece of advice.
Best piece of advice.
I mean, like, it's everything that comes to mind is just going to sound super generic, but like, I think there's a reason that it's generic. Like,
100%.
I think like, you know, all the stuff around just getting started and like perfection, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yep.
Like for me, that has been the biggest lesson. Like we sucked early days, but we just kept going and you kept trying and you learn by doing. So just do the thing.
Get started and keep going. Anything else, Bryce?
Mine would going right back to the start of the conversation. Like I look back at what my dad tried to teach me early days, and if I'd continued to do that and nothing else, I think I'd be in a much better position. But it was just keep consistently buying.
Okay.
True, yeah. I'm glad you put an investing one. Yeah. Start early, keep buying, listen to Equity Mates.
Keep consistently buying into something that's well diversified, and that's all you need to do.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love it, boys. And my final one for you as well. What do you believe is the number one character trait of the top 1%?
Number one character trait of the top 1%. I think it's almost like a confidence in what you're doing that kind of makes you push through it with a bit of naivety to it, if that makes sense. Like if
that is gonna work,
you just back yourself. Yeah. Like it's just like, and maybe that's driven by consistency, and so you kind of like, oh well, I've got through the last 2 years, let's just keep trucking away. But like, there have been plenty of moments where I look back and it's just like, why did we do that? Like, how did we keep pushing through that? It's like an ability to just back yourself. I think.
I'm going to say relentless, and like for all the same reasons that Bryce has said, but it's like, there are other buyer's agents out there, and there are probably buyer's agents that are, smarter or better educated, but like you just kept going. And like, in the podcasting world, there were definitely people that were smarter and had better equipment, but we just kept going. And I think you can extrapolate that beyond this room. It's like, Bezos wasn't the only person who had the idea that the internet would revolutionize e-commerce, but like, God, he was relentless in realizing his vision. And, like the Google guys weren't the only people that thought, you could index the internet and search it, but they were just relentless in, building the best product. And I think across industries, across countries, like the one thing that separates people that make it, the people that don't, is that they are relentless across like all adversity and they just keep going.
Yeah, what's beautiful about that, and you spoke about this a lot, Bryce, as well through this, was kind of that consistency piece. And I think if you tie the two of those together, that relentless consistency, mate, you're pretty hard to stop if you don't give up and you just relentlessly pursue something. And it's so funny, man. Like one of the most common things we get is the persistence, the grit, the resilience, the relentlessness, like those sorts of things, man. It's what everyone says. Everyone that's gotten to the top, whether it's an athlete, business owner, entrepreneur, podcasters, which in itself obviously is a business as well, like and entrepreneurial. It's all the same thing because you acknowledge, I think especially once you get to that place of achievement, and a level of achievement that took so long to get you there, that you look back and you go, yeah, fuck, I pushed pretty hard for a pretty long time. And that's the only thing you can put it down to. But I think the coolest thing about it is the longer that you do it for, the more resilient you become. And I think the relentlessness just becomes part of your nature. And you have to push through it. You have to keep going forward, because those times where there's other people, like you said, that fall off, that might have been smarter, maybe better equipped, started better, maybe even started with more capital, everything, but they didn't see that win at the start, or they had a loss here or there, or they got knocked by something as well. And then they allowed it to knock them off, or they got offered a big buyout, like, a couple of years in, rather than where could that have actually taken it to, and they have that greater vision as well. And that relentless, consistency with it. Like, you look at what you boys have built now compared to 3 years, 5 years, 8 years ago. It's wild. So, boys, that's a great note to finish it off.
Love it. Let's go keep building.
That's it. Well, Bryce and Ren, boys from Equity Mates, it has been an absolute pleasure recording the Top 1% podcast with you both. It's honestly, it's been my absolute pleasure to hear your story, hear it in a bit more depth, and kind of pull a few different things out of it as well, guys. So it was really, really good, and I massively appreciate you both jumping on.
Loved it. Thanks, Sam.
Boys, thank you. Listeners, I hope you loved today's episode. If you did, please make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform. And if you think anyone else would take some great value from this episode, maybe they are Equity Mates diehards, make sure you send this episode onto them. And until next week, guys, it's another Top 1% podcast.
You have been listening to an Equity Mates Media production. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes. Any advice is general advice only and has not taken into account your personal financial circumstances, needs, or objectives. Before acting on general advice, you should consider if it is relevant to your needs and read the relevant product disclosure statement. And if you're unsure, please speak to a financial professional. The The hosts of this podcast and their guests may have positions in the companies mentioned. Equity Mates Media operates under an Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.